Buckle up, football fans. It's time now for Toyota Talks. Bears' new nickelback safety, and he'll be playing somewhere Sunday against the Bengals. CJ Gardner-Johnson. All right, let's bring in from the NFL Network, Good Morning Football Overtime, which we carry on Fox Chicago Plus here in Chicago, Channel 50 every day from noon to 2. Jamie Erdahl, nice shirt. I like it.
Thank you. Thank you. Someone somewhere within the Bears building sent me this, and I think they are such a big person for doing that, since she who hails from that team that's just northwest of you guys. And I like it. I wore one today on GMFB Overtime that said "Believe in Monsters," and now this one says "Da Pope."
I need to pick myself up one of those. Tell me who to call at Hallis Hall so I can get one. What do you and the Good Morning Football crew think of this Bears signing?
I think, and I use this term with love, that, desperate times call for desperate measures. And I don't think that he is a desperate measure. It's just that I think if you're this Bears defense, you're just trying to find things that fit and that work. And that's okay. I am accepting of the fact that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson Jr. is not for everybody, which means that he is not going to be a fit in every locker room and for every coaching staff. Now, he's going to speak to the fact that he has played for Dennis Allen before. He is hopefully, sometimes we see cases like this kind of lock in, which is we're seeing it with Stephon Diggs in New England. Sometimes it's just right fit, right team, right unit. And if I'm the Bears defense, I'm hoping that this thing works for not a lot of money and to provide some veteran balance. And hopefully he kind of clocks in on some maturity on the field, that it all becomes a working piece of defense for this team moving forward.
Yeah, all good points. And Kevin Byard said, listen, we actually embrace the fire that he brings on the football field. 2 weeks ago, everyone was talking about the Bears being one of the NFL pleasant surprises this season. And, man, then they lose at Baltimore to a Ravens team without Lamar Jackson. You think the Bears lost some steam, some believers with that loss?
I don't think believers should totally lose hope. I also don't want people white-knuckling their couch and prepare for it to be as bad as it was last year when they started 4-2 and the trajectory that the team went on. I don't think we're anywhere near that. I think the entire culture of the building and what we're seeing from the outside looks so different than what we saw last year. I still think the Ravens as a whole, top to bottom, even though they looked like they were in dismay, that's still a strong team, a well-coached team. They were bound to bounce back. The fact that it came against the Bears, that sucks, to be honest. However, if I'm a Bears fan, I think you have a perfect opportunity this weekend to right your own ship the way the Ravens did against you last weekend.
Yeah, no question. I want to talk about the Bengals in a second, but after watching the tape of last week's game against Baltimore, Ben Johnson said, Caleb Williams played better than he thought. Now, I'll argue that, yeah, he led the team to one touchdown against an awful Ravens defense, and the Bears scored only 16 points. And the highlight plays, they're fun, but if you don't score and win, Jamie, I feel like they're empty calories out there. What do you think?
I used to sit next to Jason McCourty for a long time on Good Morning Football Overtime and Good Morning Football. And whenever I used to complain about quarterbacks around the league, he would turn and look at me with the experienced veteran that he was, having played for a lot of different style of franchises, one for New England and one for Cleveland. You know what was happening in New England at the time. They had one quarterback with one name for a very long time. And in Cleveland, the exact opposite situation. And Jason McCourty used to turn and look at me and say, do you have any other options? What's the better option? And I'm not saying that you should be feeling like we're in dire straits with Caleb Williams, but give the guy a chance. All we ever talk about is this 2024 draft class and how fun it is to watch these quarterbacks develop. But development is not just straight up the mountain. Caleb Williams is even experiencing a setback, or Jaden Daniels is even experiencing a setback this season. Whether it be from injury or not, it's not always going to look perfect. Drake May was an absolute dismay last year, and even the Patriots started off struggling this season. I think what you're seeing from Caleb Williams, as long as it continues to look like building blocks, then I would still put your hands in your pockets and just wait and see what's unfold. You're still at a small sample size of this coach and this quarterback. So again, it could have just been a wonky game last week against the Ravens. Let it be that, if it may. and let him build, and it's not always going to look like the perfect trajectory upwards.
I'm so glad you brought that up because he's always going to be compared to what happened with Jaden Daniels last season. Also, Bo Nix, who played well in Denver. And this year, he's got to look at what Drake May is doing in New England. How long do you think? I mean, how long do you give the number one pick in the draft to finally get it going with his new head coach?
I would say
the whole season?
Gosh, the whole season for sure. I was going to think in the next season.
Okay.
I had the Steelers-Vikings game in Dublin back in September, and we had the great pleasure of having a production meeting with Aaron Rodgers. And even then, I was able to ask him, looking at a J.J. McCarthy circumstance, what would you do if you had a young quarterback? And he still stands there and says, you don't let him play. Don't let him play. Don't let him play. That's one philosophical way to approach things. The Packers have had the privilege of doing that several times over in the last couple of decades. That is not what the Bears have. That is not the opportunity they had. Caleb got thrown into the fire, and he has learned so much, I can imagine, in his first season and a half. But you have to look at this thing in totality. I think what's happened in Tennessee is really unfortunate with Cam Ward. You have to give Caleb and Ben, an offensive-minded head coach, time together for sure the whole season before you rain down judgment on either one of them, but also as a collective.
Here's what's scary, Jamie, and I appreciate what you're saying. This Bengals game on Sunday, Bengals with the worst defense in the NFL, it's set up for Caleb to get back on track, and if not, the screams in this town are going to be loud enough for you to hear in Los Angeles. I know it's unfortunate, but it's the truth because this team is starving for great quarterback play.
Lou, let me ask you this, because I know oftentimes you come to us with trying to get a feeling of like the national perspective, which I really appreciate. But I'm curious, when you say fans in your market would be screaming for what? For Tyson Bagent to take over for the team? What would they be screaming for in chance of change if things don't go well this weekend?
Well, I've always said that the backup quarterback who wears a Bears uniform is the most popular player on the roster. It's really been that way since Jim McMahon was playing quarterback back in '85. And that's just what happens. And the demands of Caleb Williams have been so high in this town because he was the first pick in the draft, because he brings incredible talent. That's what the expectation is. But I guess we're going to find out.
Yeah, we will. We absolutely will.
Speaking of great quarterbacks, and I say that loosely because he's never been great, but, man, he's been really good. Joe Flacco has a sprain in his throwing shoulder. First of all, what are you hearing about Flacco playing on Sunday?
Still up in the air, and I have to imagine just with kind of that awkward situation that happened last week against you guys with Lamar and the injury report and whatnot, that the Bengals are going to leave him up in the air as long as they possibly can in terms of deciding whether or not he can go. What a terrible circumstance. This is a lead example of what would you rather have? Somebody who gets hurt and you can't figure out what your quarterback situation is, or know the guy and watch him grow right in front of you. So we haven't heard just yet. Our NFL Network insiders are still saying Joe Flacco up in the air. But I love how you said, like, let's go back to a great quarterback. I guess not everyone's always called him great. It feels like 10 years ago we were arguing about whether Joe Flacco was elite. And here we are 10 years later, and are we still having this conversation? But really, he's just a fascinating study at quarterback. And I think he's a prime example if any of these young quarterbacks want to look at what it looks like to have a high IQ, a guy that the more you play, the better you get, and how experience breeds success. Look no further than what Joe Flacco has been able to do. I hope he can play because I think it's a fun story for the season.
I love the story. I loved his press conference about a week ago when he talked about missing his family dearly right now and going to the hotel bar and sitting there by himself. Man, it really hit home for a reporter like myself. I'm sure yourself as well, being in the business, and you touched on it. Guy's been in the league 18 years, 40 years old. He's slinging it all over Cincinnati right now, and he's usually slinging it to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Can you believe how many times he's thrown those two guys the football so far?
I think, speaking of football IQ, I think you'd be an idiot to not throw to those two. They're a remarkable talent. And Jamar Chase is a remarkable talent, period, paragraph. We saw that at LSU. We saw that with his partnership with Justin Jefferson when those two were in college together. But to have T. Higgins as well is just the ultimate luxury of riches. And I would love to read the book that Joe Flacco writes later in life about what it's been like to work with these two young talents specifically. I also would want to know from their perspective just how ridiculous it was to shake the guy's hand and be catching like 30 balls like 36 hours later. It's a crazy story. But Lou, to put a cap on the press conference, the Joe Flacco one that you just said, the ultimate veteran move here is Joe Flacco's wife, who said after 18 years, honey, wherever you are, we're staying at our home in New Jersey. We're keeping the kids in school. We're staying at our house. That's the ultimate vet move, if you ask me.
You are exactly right. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought a female perspective into the equation. I love that. I know your partner, Kyle Brandt's taking the Bears. Are you allowed to give me a winner in this game?
Sure, I'll take the Bears. Why not? I mean, I figure if I'm wearing my DePope shirt
yes.
and, We Believe in Monster shirt on GMFB Overtime today, sure, I'll take the Bears. Why not?
I like it. I like it. By the way, I can't let you go without asking you about your Vikings. Full 100% confidence in J.J. McCarthy right now after we both witnessed poor Carson Wentz a week ago on Thursday?
Listen, I'll finish with what I started this with, Lou. What else do we have? And that is an undrafted rookie behind him, and Max Brosmer, who transferred into the University of Minnesota. I know he played D1 compared to Tyson, but has a Tyson Bagent quality to him. Like, don't know a lot about him. What's going on there? I better have full confidence in J.J. McCarthy. Otherwise, we have bigger issues in Minnesota moving forward. So I hate the fact that it's against the Lions. I hate the fact that it's in Detroit. I said it on the show earlier today. The worst 3 words, if you're J.J. McCarthy, that you can hear about Aiden Hutchinson going into this weekend is healthy, rested, and paid. And that's exactly what just happened for Aiden Hutchinson. So look out, J.J. Keep your wits about you against the Lions.
Yeah, very rich now. What, $181? I could do a lot with
like
181 million. You are the best. Thank you so much for the time, Jamie, as always.
Thank you. You too, Lou.